Listen, let me tell y'all something. You ever notice how people always try to make you pick sides like life is some kind of reality TV show? They'll say, between this person and that person, who do you like more? And it ain't just about music or sports teams or even food. No, no, no. They want you to pick between world leaders like your personal preference got anything to do with how nations run. That's where we're at. Between Modi and Donald Trump, who do you like the most? That's the question that gets thrown around. And let me tell you, that's not an easy one to just laugh off, because when you mention these two names, you're talking about two men who walk into a room and the entire atmosphere shifts. You're talking about two leaders who command attention, spark debate, divide people, unite people, and get headlines rolling like fireworks on the 4th of July. Now first, let's deal with the fact that both of these men, they ain't subtle. Oh no, they don't whisper their way into the history books. They come in loud. They come in bold. They come in shaking things up, whether you like it or not. They know how to take the spotlight and they ain't ever running from it. You see, most leaders out here, they try to play it safe, be diplomatic, smooth talk their way through. But these two, they're like two heavyweight boxers in the middle of the ring, gloves off sometimes, throwing punches with words and actions that make the whole world stop and pay attention. And you got to respect that energy, even if you don't always agree with what they say or do. Now, when you look at Modi, you're looking at a man who rose up from the ground level. We're talking humble beginnings, selling tea, working his way up. That's the kind of story that touches people's hearts. That's the story of grit, resilience, believing in yourself when nobody else is betting on you. Because let's be real, how many times in your life have you felt overlooked? How many times have people told you, you ain't got the right background, you ain't got the money, you ain't got the connections? And then you look at somebody like that who went from the margins of society to the top seat of the world's largest democracy, and you think, man, maybe I can do it too. That's inspiration right there. That's proof that your past doesn't define your future. That's proof that hard work, determination, and vision can take you places no one thought you'd ever reach. And then on the other side, you got Donald Trump. Now that's a man who didn't exactly climb from the bottom, but he came in with something else. Swagger. Whether you like him or you can't stand him, one thing you can't say is that he don't know how to own a stage. He knows how to make people talk, and he knows how to make people feel. Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's loyalty, sometimes it's confusion, but you ain't ever bored when his name comes up. He represents a different kind of story. He represents somebody who said, I don't need to play by your rules. I'm going to make my own. And look, there's a lot of people in this world who secretly wish they could do that. They wish they could walk into a room and not care about who approves. They wish they could break the mold, skip the line, and still come out on top. And that's why he got so many people riding for him, because he lives that fantasy out loud. So when you put these two men side by side, you're looking at two very different energies. One is the story of the underdog, the man who turned nothing into something, who climbed brick by brick with bare hands. The other is the story of disruption, the man who flipped the table, tore up the old rule book, and said, we're going to do this my way. And the truth is, depending on who you are, depending on what you value, you're going to lean toward one or the other. But that's the beauty of it. Both represent power, just in different languages. Let's talk about leadership styles, because that's where the real difference shows. Modi, he's calculated. He plays the long game. He speaks like a teacher sometimes, weaving history, culture, and national pride into every sentence. He knows how to connect with millions not by shouting, but by making people feel they're part of something bigger. And in a country like India, with so many languages, so many religions, so many divisions, you need that kind of glue. You need someone who can say, hey, you belong here. You're part of this story. Together we rise. That's powerful. That's leadership. Now, Trump, he ain't about no long lecture. He's about impact right there, right now. He'll say something in a tweet that gets the whole planet buzzing in 2 seconds. He knows the power of shock, of boldness, of cutting straight through the noise. He don't want you sitting there trying to decode paragraphs of policy. He wants you to feel something instantly, and that's why his supporters love him, because they say, at least I know what he's thinking. He ain't hiding behind no diplomat talk. And listen, in a world where so many leaders hide behind polished speeches and staged appearances, there's something refreshing about that raw, unfiltered energy, even if sometimes it goes too far. But the question here ain't just about leadership styles. It's about who do you like more. And here's where it gets interesting, because like is an emotional word. It's not about who runs the economy better or who has stronger policies. It's about connection. It's about who resonates with your soul, your values, your worldview. For some, they like Modi more because they see discipline, humility, a man who rose from nothing. For others, they like Trump more because they see boldness, rebellion, a man who speaks his mind no matter what. And then there's a group that says, I don't like either one of them because they're too controversial. And that's fair too. Because let's be real, not everybody can vibe with strong personalities. Some people want calm, steady leadership. These two, they ain't calm. They're firecrackers. They're fireworks. They're lightning in human form. Now let's take this deeper, because when we ask who you like more, we're also asking who you identify with more. Are you the kind of person who believes in steady climb, patience, persistence? Or are you the kind of person who believes in breaking barriers, shaking things up, rewriting the rules? That's the real reflection. When you pick one over the other, you're revealing something about yourself. You're saying, this is how I see life. This is how I fight my battles. And that's why this question is bigger than politics. It's about identity. See, people love Modi because he symbolizes transformation. He's like that reminder that no matter how tough life is, no matter how small your beginnings, if you keep your vision alive, you can rise. And that hits deep, especially for millions of ordinary folks who feel invisible. On the other hand, people love Trump because he symbolizes resistance. He's that voice that says, I'm not going to play by your rules. I'm not going to let the establishment box me in. And let's be honest, a lot of people feel suffocated by the system. They feel ignored, betrayed, left behind. And when someone stands up and says, I don't care about their rules, I'm here for you, they listen, they follow. But let's also be clear. Liking somebody don't mean agreeing with everything they do. You might like Modi's discipline, but disagree with some of his policies. You might like Trump's boldness, but not the chaos that comes with it. That's the complexity of leadership. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is spotless. And when you like a leader, it's often about what part of them connects to your values, not about their entire package. Think about history. Every great leader had admirers and critics. Some loved them for their vision, others hated them for their methods. That's how it works. But at the end of the day, liking somebody is about resonance. It's about, does this person speak to something inside of me? Does this person make me believe in possibility? And both Modi and Trump, in their own unique ways, have done that for millions. You can't deny that. Now, some people are going to say, but who's better? And that's where I push back, because better depends on what yardstick you're using. If your yardstick is humility, then one might edge out the other. If your yardstick is boldness, then it flips. If your yardstick is stability, it's another story. If your yardstick is disruption, it's different again. So instead of asking who's better, the real question is, who do you connect with more? Who do you see yourself in? And let me tell you, both of these men, they teach lessons beyond politics. Modi teaches you that your past ain't your prison. That no matter how low you start, you can climb. That leadership is about serving, about vision, about discipline. Trump teaches you that sometimes you got to stop waiting for permission. Sometimes you got to kick the door open. Sometimes you got to be unapologetically you, even when the whole world boos. And maybe the lesson here ain't about picking one. Maybe the lesson is about recognizing what each symbolizes and taking that into your own life. Because the truth is, life ain't about idolizing leaders, it's about becoming one in your own way. Now, between Modi and Trump, who do you like the most? That's personal. That's about your lens, your journey, your dreams. And maybe, just maybe, the answer ain't even about them. Maybe the answer is about what kind of leader you want to be in your own house, in your own community, in your own circle. Because if you can take Modi's resilience and Trump's boldness and mix it into your own life, you'd be unstoppable. You'd rise from nothing, and you'd do it without asking permission. You'd inspire, you'd disrupt, you'd transform. And maybe that's the real takeaway, liking them ain't about them. It's about what you see in yourself when you look at them. See, let me break this down for you, because too often people get caught up in debates that don't even put food on their table. Folks will sit around arguing for hours. Who do you like more? This leader or that one? This style or that one? And while they're going back and forth, they miss the point completely. Life ain't about putting two people on pedestals and trying to figure out who's the greatest. Life is about asking yourself, what can I learn from both of them that'll actually make my life better? Because I don't care if you're talking about politicians, athletes, entertainers, or anybody in the spotlight. The truth is, the real gems are in the lessons they leave behind, not the arguments about who wins the popularity contest. Now, when you look at Modi, you see resilience in its purest form. This man started out with nothing. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He wasn't riding on family wealth. He wasn't in some elite circle waiting to hand him power. He worked his way up from the bottom. And listen to me, anybody who has ever been broke, anybody who has ever felt invisible, anybody who has ever had to claw their way out of a hole knows exactly how hard that is. That kind of resilience builds a different kind of character. It makes you tougher, sharper, and hungrier than the rest. Because when you've had to struggle just to be seen, you develop a mindset that says, I will not quit no matter how many doors close in my face. That's resilience. That's the ability to take hit after hit and still keep moving forward. On the flip side, you got Trump, and say what you will about him, the man embodies boldness. He don't whisper, he don't tiptoe, he don't ask permission. He walks in the room like he owns it, whether he does or not. And that boldness, let me tell you something, it's magnetic, because in life, people gravitate toward confidence. You could be wrong as the day is long, but if you stand there with your chest out, believing every word that comes out your mouth, people will stop and listen. That's the power of boldness. Boldness makes you stand out in a world where most people are too scared to raise their hand, too scared to step out of line, too scared to speak their truth. And sometimes, boldness is what gets you the shot that talent alone couldn't. So here we are with two very different qualities, resilience and boldness. One shows you how to survive the storm, the other shows you how to step into the spotlight. And here's the kicker, you need both. You can't just be resilient without boldness, and you can't just be bold without resilience. Because if you only got resilience, you'll keep taking hits, keep surviving, but you might never rise because you're too busy waiting for someone to notice you. And if you only got boldness, you'll shine for a minute, but when the storms of life come, you'll crumble because you don't have the toughness to endure. You need both. Resilience is what keeps you going when life knocks you down. Boldness is what pushes you to knock on doors you got no business knocking on. Resilience is the voice that says, get up, try again. Boldness is the voice that says, why not me? Why not now? Resilience gives you the patience to keep climbing. Boldness gives you the courage to take the leap when the moment arrives. Together, they make you unstoppable. Think about your own life. How many times have you played it too safe? How many times have you sat on an idea, a dream, a talent, because you were scared of what people might say? That's where boldness should have stepped in. But maybe you didn't have it. Maybe you were waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect sign, the perfect approval. Newsflash, there is no perfect moment. Boldness is stepping up anyway. Boldness is saying, even if I ain't fully ready, even if I don't got all the answers, I'm going to take this shot. Now, let's flip it. How many times have you actually taken a leap, but then you fell flat on your face? How many times did you try, only to get rejected, only to hear no, only to get laughed at? That's when resilience should have carried you. But maybe you gave up too soon. Maybe you said, well, I tried once and it didn't work, so I guess it's not for me. See, that's where people mess up. They think one setback is the end of the story. No, no, no. Resilience says, that wasn't the end. That was just the test. Get back up, keep going. And if you combine resilience with boldness, you won't just keep going. You'll keep going with courage, with fire, with a spirit that says, I dare life to try and stop me. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine somebody who has resilience without boldness. They're tough, they can handle struggle, but they never step into their destiny because they're too afraid to put themselves out there. That's the person who stays at the same job for 20 years, hating it, but saying, at least I got a paycheck. They survive, but they don't thrive. Now imagine somebody who has boldness without resilience. They step out, they make noise, they get attention, but the moment life hits them hard, they fold. That's the person who tries 10 different things, but quits each one after the first setback. They shine for a second, then disappear. Neither of these extremes works. But when you put resilience and boldness together, that's when you get someone who can survive the storm and still chase the sun. That's when you get someone who rises from nothing, and when they finally get their shot, they ain't scared to take it. Look at some of the greatest success stories in history, and you'll see both qualities at play. Every inventor, every leader, every visionary had to have resilience to keep going after failure and boldness to believe their vision when no one else did. You think Thomas Edison didn't need resilience when he failed thousands of times before the light bulb? You think he didn't need boldness to keep telling people, I'm going to figure this out, when everybody thought he was crazy? You think Oprah didn't need resilience after being rejected and told she wasn't fit for TV? You think she didn't need boldness to build an empire in an industry where people didn't look like her at the top? That's the lesson here. Don't get caught up in choosing sides. Don't waste your time arguing who you like more. Take the best qualities from each and apply them to your own life. Because at the end of the day, what good is it to admire resilience if you don't build your own? What good is it to clap for boldness if you stay timid in your own story? And let me tell you something else. Resilience and boldness ain't just for politics or business.